Hey guys, today I'm doing a video on the French Revolution. So the French Revolution was a period in France between 1789 and 1799 that led to great social and political upheaval, in which the monarchy was overthrown by the people, and then they established a kind of okay system that was based off good intentions, and then led to more chaos, disruption, corruption, and dictatorship again. So, okay, for the longest time, basically since the creation of France, it was a monarchy. And at this time, they had this guy, King Louis XVI. So this bad boy, he was the king of France, basically. And he wasn't a very good leader. He led to a lot of problems and corruption and famines and whatnot. So he had a meeting of the Estates Generale, which was basically, it met every, 2 centuries, so basically never, but the Estates Generale was basically a convention where there was 3 different groups. There was the first estate, which was the clergy, so the religious guys, there's a cross. The second was the nobility, which was the monarchs and whatnot. And then the third estate was just everyone, everyone else that wasn't one of the first 2 estates. So basically these guys would meet every once in a while to try to deal and solve with these massive problems that would just happen every once in a while because of issues and whatnot. So at this Estates Generale, whenever the common people, the 98%, would be like, we want reform. So it was 98% of the people, because that was the third estate, basically everyone. The first 2 estates, because they voted 1 vote per estate, the clergy and nobility, the first and second estates, would just veto anything 2-to-1 that the third estate, which was everyone, would ask for. So because of this pretty rough system that would make literally everyone basically have no right at all, the third estate just bounced, and they went to an indoor tennis court actually, because all the other buildings were locked off from them. So here's them. There's a famous painting about it. All these bad boys were just in here now, all the members, the delegates of the third estate, and they decided to declare France a republic and make their own system of government. So now it's a democratic government. So this was called the National Assembly, what they founded, and it was basically based off the ideals of the Enlightenment, which was an idea that was kind of shortly before, not shortly, but it was before this, when the creation of this and the revolution and whatnot. It was basically the idea that instead of having all these monarchs, why don't we just, why should they be leading us? They're not any better than us, they're just people. It's not like they're gods or anything, so we should be free, we should have our own system, we should be democratic, we should have a constitutional monarchy, and that's what the moderates said. So basically, the people of the National Assembly, they were basically all just called moderates. So the moderates, they wanted a constitutional monarchy. So that's basically just the government that they have in the UK right now. So basically they have a democratic parliament, which is just the people choose everything, but they also just have a figurehead, so the king and queen, Queen Elizabeth in the UK right now. But basically they're just there to just kind of be cool, just whatever. Oh cool, we have a king and queen. How epic. So they just kind of wanted that, and they wanted people to be free, basically. So they wanted democracy. So that was basically the consensus on what the new government, the Republic, wanted. The Republic of France. This is also referred to as the First Republic. There was 5. We're on the 5th Republic right now in France. Okay, so that was them. But there was another group. Ooh, spooky. These guys would cause trouble later on. These are the bad boys. The Jacobins. Mwahaha. So the Jacobins, they were radical boys, and they were led by this guy, Maximilien Robespierre. So this guy, he led the Jacobins. And the Jacobins, they wanted no monarchy. They were like, all monarchy is bad because it's still undemocratic if we have a king or queen. And they also were even more extreme. They were like, no religion. So they completely rejected religion because they saw it as another form of imperialism, in which it kind of was. I mean, the Pope kind of was just like a massive imperialist guy that just controlled all the politics of the Catholic world at that point. Now the Pope's really cool. Pope Francis, he's lit. Okay, so those are the two sides, the moderates and the Jacobins. The Jacobins didn't really have any support, though. They were just a very fringe group. But as you see through history, like the Bolsheviks, and I don't know, I can't really think of any examples right now besides them, the minority usually comes and takes over, so I guess we'll see how that goes. But basically this new government, they created a very important document called the Declaration of Independence. Just kidding. The Declaration of the Rights of Man. So this was basically them saying, these are our rights, and it's kind of like the Bill of Rights. If you live in America, you know what that is. But basically, it was them declaring what every person should now have as an equal anti-hierarchy system. So they said every man was born equal and stayed equal their whole life. So everyone is equal. Also, they had some rights they listed out. So the main ones were liberty, pretty solid choice. Property, which is kind of questionable, but okay. Security, it's pretty good. And the oh my bad. Let's move this paper up. And the resistance to oppression. Very vague, but very good. There's some other stuff like freedom of speech and freedom of religion and freedom of justice, but those are the main ones. So that was signed in by the moderate government, basically. That was the new leading force. But then, here, let's draw the meeting here. So this is like their parliament building or whatever. So here they are. They have a nice moderate government. So they have some, this is their parliament. So basically their system, they wanted not to have any kind of like formal leader that was like going to become a dictator, like a king or anything. So they would just set up a lot of committees. So instead of having one person rule, they would just have a bunch of committees do things, and the committees would be appointed by the parliament, basically. So this is their parliament, whatever. But then there was this one guy who was very important for the Jacobins later, who were still very fringe. There was this one guy named Jeanpierre, I think. I kind of forgot his first name. But anyway, this is Marat. So this boy, he had his own newspaper that was kind of like the voice of the revolution. So basically everyone read it that was for the revolution, which was basically everyone, because basically everyone in the third estate, which was like 98%. So he was very vocally in support of the Jacobins and Robespierre. He was like, the moderates are too close to the monarchy. We need to further ourselves completely from them and completely break away from them and their old ideals and old values. So this guy became very important, and he would write his newspaper about supporting Robespierre and the Jacobins. So because of that, slowly after time, people were electing out these moderate dudes and empowering more and more Jacobins, which led to a more, I guess, more of a idealistic and more extreme revolutionary government. So eventually, most of the moderates were removed, and then eventually the rest of them were kind of just gotten rid of. So basically the whole government was now controlled directly by the aggressive Jacobin club. So here we go. So now we have all these Jacobin boys, and their leader, my bad, not Marat. That'd be pretty funny, alternate history. Here we go, Robespierre. So here we go. This is our government now, basically. So they set up a new government called, wait for it. This is a very ironic name after you hear what they do, but they set up the Committee for public safety. So basically this was their new government. It was the Jacobin government, basically. And this government did like basically the complete opposite of what they have in their name. They ended up killing upwards of 40,000 people, which was like obviously way more back then when there was like maybe like 2 billion people on Earth instead of like 7 billion. And this basically happened because our boy over here, Robespierre, he was like, we need to get rid of everyone that opposes the revolution, even some people that just don't support it enough. So basically, he was trying to set up what he called his divine republic. So basically, Robespierre, he was very much a visionary, but almost too much, as to where he thought of himself as like Jesus or like a god or something. And he's like bestowing upon the people of France the divine republic, which is like everyone is equal, and basically that was it. And also just, I guess, Jacobin rule forever. The Jacobins rule. So his group, basically, so that, to create this, he was like, we need to get everyone that could possibly oppose our system. So he was like, no to religion, no to any form of like monarchy or anything. So let's get rid of those bad boys. And any other thing that could possibly oppose basically setting up a Jacobin dictatorship, because that was kind of what it was. It wasn't really much, they didn't really uphold the thing, and like he even like was like, he didn't really care about the like, oh, the Declaration of the Rights of Man, we're done with that. Basically he did not uphold any of the rights of this. That was bye-bye. Okay, so now after that, Robespierre was kind of thinking himself as some kind of like super person, like, whoa, he was so epic, he just did this, and he would kill like some people. So let's just do like a quick sidetrack. So the guillotine, this is basically the weapon that they used in France like during the revolution, and I guess some time afterwards. I think they stopped using it like the 1970s, which is aggressively long, but whatever. So the guillotine, which killed upwards of 40,000 in the revolution, as I said before. It was considered the most humane way of killing people, because it wasn't like these long, drawn-out tortures of like the medieval days, and it killed everyone the same. If you were the nobility, clergy, or common people, everyone died like instantly, basically, from this massive razor blade just like knocking your head off, basically. So that was the main weapon used in the revolution. So okay, my bad, guys. So my phone cut out for some reason, but I'm back. Okay, so the guillotine was considered like the most humane way of killing people, just because it killed everyone equally, I guess. Everyone died equally as quick and horrendously. So basically during the Reign of Terror, which was the time when the Jacobins were in control and Robespierre was just dictator basically for life, just like massive amounts of people were just being guillotined left and right, like boom, boom, and boom. So anyways, upwards of 40,000 died, and that was considered the Reign of Terror, which lasted for about 2 years, from like 1792 to 1794, basically. So the Reign of Terror ended when finally, after like an aggressively long time of this horrible rule, when Robespierre was talking to his own like people that weren't supportive of him, his own Jacobins, he was like, I've killed so many people, and even some of you loyal subjects of mine are even traitors as well, and I will kill some of you. So they were like, this guy is literally just like, this guy needs to chill out. So to make him chill out, they decided to execute him. So he became finally the last death of the guillotine in the Reign of Terror. He was done. The Jacobins were ousted. So now that was the end of the Reign of Terror, and the Jacobins, these boys over here, they were all expelled. They were gone now. They were not in command anymore because of how aggressive they were, and the Committee for Public Safety was dissolved. Now a new group called the Thermidorians took over, and they were basically just moderates again. So this event was called the Thermidorian Reaction, and it was named after some of the weird things that Robespierre implemented, like, because he was against religion, he implemented the cult of reason, which is basically, let's worship freedom and science instead of gods and stuff. And also he made his own Republican calendar to be like some kind of democratic thing, because the current one that we use, like January, February, March, April, whatnot, that was too religious for him, so he made all these new things. So one of the months, it was supposed to be 10 months, 10 days per month or something. It was really weird, but anyway, one of the months was called Thermidor, so the Thermidorian reaction was named after that. And Thermidor is around like mid-July, kind of, in real life. Not in real life, in the current day, I guess, when that calendar is long dead. So that happened, basically, and it happened in 1794 after Robespierre was executed. But, so they took over, the Thermidorians. They were basically just moderates. They were these boys right here, basically. But they were extremely corrupt. They weren't like the first moderates. They would just take money from the treasury and throw parties. They were basically like King Louis. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, but when the Robespierre took over, he also executed King Louis, dead. Forgot to mention that, but yeah, he was one of the first deaths. And also, they also made him not even king, so he was just Louis Capet, because his last name was Capet, or sorry, Capet. So yeah, he was dead also. But yeah, they were gone, these aggressive, idealistic Jacobins. So now the Thermidorians, these corrupt guys, they were in control. And they were becoming just steadily unpopular, basically. So like, they're going down, basically, the Thermidorians, whatever. And then there was this one guy, this general. He was actually very successful in his military campaigns, and the people started to notice. His name was Napoleon, and he started to rise in support. So this guy, Napoleon, he was a very aggressive general, as I said, and he was very successful. And people started to like join his side. So later, after the Thermidorians, and their government was called the Directory, he overthrew the Directory and empowered himself as a new committee, which was just him and two of his boys. So now this was the new government of France, with Napoleon, General Napoleon, leading the government, basically. So yeah, he overthrew them, and then, so then after a while of Napoleon kind of respecting this rule by committee system with two of his friends, he just kind of got rid of them and he declared himself first consul. So he was like basically just the de facto military dictator of France at this point. And France was fighting a bunch of other countries at the moment because they were trying to empower the king again, because they were kind of scared of this idea of freedom spreading to their people. So basically, France was just fighting like everyone in Europe at the time. Let me try to draw France kind of inaccurately, but whatever, England. So yeah, France over here was just kind of fighting everyone and trying to expand out, and because they were trying to push them back. So Napoleon was one of the very competent generals, so yeah, he ousted them. He was dictator. He declared himself first consul, so he was basically he was kind of like in a committee, but like just by himself, so like, is that really a committee if it's one person? So whatever. And then, finally, on December 2nd of 1804, Napoleon, after just being kind of bored of having kind of a lame title, declared himself Napoleon Bonaparte, the Emperor. So now he was the Emperor. Boom. So basically now, let me just show you the complete just destruction of democracy and horrendous nature of the French Revolution. So, okay. We had a monarchy. Pretty cringe. And they were leading, like, for the massivest amount of time. Then we had we had freedom, I guess. Freedom for a pretty short time. Then we had these radicals, the Jacobins. They took over for a while, and they made things horrendous. And then we just had more corrupt guys. I'll just put corruption. The Thermidorians and their guys. And now, after all of this nonsense, after all this obstruction of justice, we go back again to another monarchy with Napoleon as emperor for life. So yeah, this is why the revolution, it derailed so like aggressively, and it changed from this monarchy to freedom to like extremism and radicalism to just corruption, and then back to monarchy again. And then this kind of, after this, there was the Napoleonic Wars, where basically Napoleon as emperor was just fighting all of Europe to make him, to retain himself as emperor. Let me give him his little crown back. Beautiful. But yeah, that happened, and eventually he was exiled to Elba, which is this little island by Italy, sort of. But then he actually came back. He was actually able to escape prison there and just kind of go back or whatever. Actually, I don't think he was even in prison. He was just kind of sent there to live there, and he just kind of left because he was like, this is dumb. And he actually went and retook power for himself in France, but then he was exiled a second time, and he was sent to like an island in the South Atlantic, so he wouldn't really come back ever. I think it was like Ascension Island. I'm not totally sure though. Don't take that as fact. But yeah, he was finally removed, and they put in another emperor, basically. That wasn't Napoleon. And then it became, there's some other stuff that happened afterwards, but we're not going to talk about that. So that was basically the French Revolution. I'm trying to find that first thing. 1 second. Yeah, so that was the French Revolution by Owen Creative. Land.